Hello and welcome to this webinar. I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21, and this is one of the many webinars we do where we look at some of the major issues that are confronting us in this country and indeed globally, and some of the solutions that people are attempting to find to tackle those issues. And when I say solutions, solutions by citizens, by community groups, by local authorities, housing associations, governments, many others. And we try to case study good practice, we try to debate it, discuss it, and see where we move from there. Now, one of the big issues that's facing us now, and it's going to face us for many years, is energy. How do we produce enough energy when the fossil fuel industry is in decline? And how do we do that in a sustainable fashion so that we do not increase our carbon footprint? In fact, we reduce our carbon footprint. Now, many people are looking at this and it's becoming encouraging because it's being done by using renewables. There was a time when renewables were very expensive, but they're becoming less and less expensive. And some renewables like solar will be cheaper than fossil fuels and a lot more user friendly. But also, we're looking at the fact that in the past, energy production and distribution was done top down from large companies. But now we're beginning to see how we can do that at a local level, and often through community energy networks. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be looking at one local authority, North London's endeavour to create a community energy network and to use it to, in fact, heat 15,000 homes, which can be expanded to 30,000, and to do it in partnership with a company called isEnergetic. Now, we've got with us today Jeff Laidler, who's the head of sustainability at the London Borough of Enfield, and he's going to take us through that. He's going to tell us about how he developed this project, how innovative it is, how local it is, and whether community energy networks like this are, in his opinion, the way of the future. So I'm going to pass over to Jeff now, and he's going to do his presentation for us. Then when he's finished, we're going to ask you to make questions, make comments. In fact, you don't have to wait until he's finished. You can type them up as he speaks, so we're ready to go when he's finished his presentation. This webinar will then be recorded, and we'll distribute this to as many people as possible because it is a really good case study of good practice. So Jeff, thank you for joining us today, and I'm going to hand over to you now.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Good morning, all. This is my first webinar, so please bear with me. As Francis says, I'm Jeff Laidler. I'm the Enfield Council's Head of Sustainability, and I'm also isEnergetic's Business Development Director. My role has been to lead isEnergetic's development, establishing this business as a startup local energy company with the money needed to make it a reality, and then secondly, to client the business up to the main investment decision, which was January of this year. We thought it'd be useful to use isEnergetic as a case study, to share some of our lessons learned, and also importantly, to show why community energy networks are the way of the future. They deliver significant carbon reduction, and they have the opportunity to secure an area's long-term energy needs. So my presentation is, as Francis said, about community energy networks and if they're the way of the future, which no surprise they are, but I'll explain why. So the first thing, for those that don't know, is to explain where Enfield is. So we're London's most northerly borough. We've got 339,000 residents. We're a similar size to Cardiff. Enfield is a city in its own right. We've got our own sustainability challenges and opportunities. We've also got a growing energy demand as our population continues to increase. And just to sort of set the scene, 40% of the borough is designated as green belts, and 1,900 homes a year are needed to keep up with projected population growth. So there's a huge amount of regeneration happening in Enfield, and it's actually focused on the brownfield sites. And isEnergetic is looking to provide the low carbon energy infrastructure that underpins that regeneration. So in terms of the bigger picture, this year, Enfield Council exceeded its 40% carbon reduction target 3 years early. So as a council, we've significantly reduced our carbon footprint. We're also working hard to reduce the carbon footprint of the borough, which is also on track for a 40% reduction by 2020. We've now, as we're setting our new carbon targets, we've set a 60% carbon reduction target for both the council and the borough by 2025. And sustainable Enfield is a local solution to the global problem of climate change. We've defined sustainability based on 6 themes, one of which is energy. And through a series of investments, we're saving money, energy and carbon. And isEnergetic is a key part of this investment strategy. So the council's effectively set up its own local energy company. And in January of this year, in 2017, the council agreed to invest £58 million in isEnergetic in its business plan. And that is to provide over 15,000 homes and businesses in North London with low carbon heat and hot water. So, as is shown in the graph, space heating and water heating account for the majority of the UK's heat consumption. So heat is therefore central to the UK's decarbonisation agenda. Importantly, it's something we can do something about, especially in densely populated urban areas, and that's really where community energy comes into its own. They're a key opportunity, and UK local authorities are in a prime position to act. To deliver these networks, driving local benefits for the long term and ensuring a fair price for the consumer. So what is isEnergetic? We're a new type of energy company. We're 100% owned by Enfield Council. We've got a vision, which is to revolutionise the local energy market and be the supplier to trust. And we've been established to provide better value energy that's reliable and environmentally friendly. You might think it's strange to put in there reliable, because I think most consumers would expect that, but UK heat networks do have a particular issue with reliability. So we've put that in as part of our mission. Our initial focus is on the new build regeneration that's happening within North London, and we're about to go live with our first customers this month. So it's an exciting time for us. For those that don't know, community energy networks, they work by pumping low carbon energy in the form of hot water along highly insulated pipes. And we've designed our community energy networks to be very energy efficient, really highly insulated, going way beyond British standards and actually going to Scandinavian standards. So it's a big investment, but what that ensures is that we'll end up with a very energy efficient network. And ultimately, we can ensure a fair price for the consumer, which is our main driver. And recognising that we're in effect a monopoly, we've also put lots of effort into winning hearts and minds of stakeholders. So a huge amount of effort actually working with residents, with businesses, to show what the benefits of the networks will be. So where are isEnergetic's heat networks? So we've got 4 heat networks. 3 of them are being delivered as part of estate renewal schemes in the borough, and they're all powered by gas-fired CHP, combined heat and power. Down in the south west of the borough, we've got our own Arnos Grove heat network, and this is the one that's just about to go live. And that will be built out to be just over 500 homes and a hotel, with the opportunity to keep on expanding. In the northeast of the borough, we've got the Ponders End heat network. The starting point is over 1,000 properties. Electric quarter development, again, we're on site at the moment, putting the pipes in. That'll go live later this year. And the Alma Road estate regeneration project, the tower blocks are coming down at the moment. And yes, there's a big opportunity to connect electric water to Ponders End and then to expand out from there. So there's 2 sites, 2 estate renewals where we're on site at the moment. Our third is Oakwood. That'll be another 400 homes, and we've got a big opportunity to extend there down to Southgate and Town Centre. All of those 3 networks, they're built by developers to isEnergetic's high quality standards, and then isEnergetic adopts the assets. Our final network, and by far our biggest, is down at Meridian Water, down in the southeast of the borough. It's over 10,000 homes. It will be one contractor who's designing. They're already designing it at the moment, but to design, build, operate and maintain the energy centre. And importantly here, our big opportunity is we're right next to Edmonton Eco Park. So there's an energy recovery facility that's getting planning permission. and we'll be connecting up to the energy recovery facility, taking the waste heat and using it to supply the heating and hot water to residents and businesses nearby. We've got significant expansion opportunities at this site. So once we've connected up to Meridian Water, we can go northwest up to Edmonton Green. We can go westwards to another estate renewal, Snells and Joyce, and ultimately we could actually expand down into the regeneration that's happening in Haringey. So for all of these networks, we're looking to do the 15,000 homes, but we've deliberately built in the capacity to go to over 30,000, so a sort of truly city-scale heat network. Sorry, that's the Meridian Water site down there. Okay, so UK heat networks and community energy networks, they're on a bit of a tightrope at the moment, or it certainly feels like that. There's significant positives. So there's really significant market growth. I think we've got a rare sweet spot in UK environmental policy where we've got the national, regional and local alignment, which is crucial for making things happen. There's a big inward investment opportunity. We've got new players coming in, and there's clear environmental benefits. So we're improving local air quality. So at Meridian Water, you'd have the 10,000 homes. None of them would actually have a domestic boiler. So you're removing all of that, all of those NOx emissions, and then there's significant carbon reduction. But we've got to balance that against some of the issues that are there in UK heat networks at the moment. There's quite often some articles in the press. There's a stretched supply chain. There's unscrupulous new entrants, unfortunately poor build quality in some cases, and poor customer service. And I think the thing that really stands out that a lot of heat networks frequently forget about the end customer, and that's what we're trying to do differently. We're trying to put the customer first. If you go to any heat network conference, it tends to be very engineering focused on the nuts and bolts, but sometimes forgetting the experience that the customer will have. So yes, we've been putting the customer first. So why has Enfield Council invested in isEnergetic? So there's many benefits to community energy networks. I think it's fair to say they're the future if we do it right. We can't just deliver heat networks anymore. We need to do them well. And isEnergetic has looked to continental Europe to take lessons learnt and best practice and bring it into the UK. So we're aiming to do things differently. We're using public resources to invest locally in a plug and play network. So it's future proofed. As different technologies come along, we can plug them into the network. And we're really preparing the area for future energy needs. So it's better for the local economy. It's an extra string to Enfield's bow. So if an energy intensive business is perhaps looking to move to North London, this could be one key reason why they might move to Enfield. As mentioned before, we're using Scandinavian design standards, so we're really pushing the industry in what is an unregulated market to ensure this fair price for consumers. So we're providing better value for residents, so they won't be paying any premium, and they'll be getting low carbon heating and hot water as a result. We're putting customer first, so every home, every resident will have a smart meter, and this is a big sort of game changer really. It's an opportunity to engage consumers in their energy use. We're focused on expansion, which perhaps private sector energy companies might not be, so the big advantage for us is to go big and do this at scale. So we're aiming to expand and to take our base business case from 15,000 to 30,000 plus homes and businesses. And then finally, if you're building a heat network, one of the things that's a real asset is, of course, an energy recovery facility, and we've got one of those in the borough, and we'll have a new one. So we're looking to take the waste heat from there and make full use of it. So how are we helping others share our vision? So isEnergetic is sharing lessons learned to actively help other UK public bodies use our learning as a springboard. This month in October, we actually hosted a well-attended workshop for UK local authorities and other public bodies at Siemens Crystal. And we've developed a full package of documentation needed to deliver community energy networks well. And this includes the full suite of legal documents and procurement specifications, as well as the governance documents needed to set up a public sector energy service company. And this is all available for just over £100,000, 135,000, and it's effectively cost Enfield Council 4.3 million to get to this point in terms of development costs. A huge amount of work that's gone in to produce all the documentation that's needed, the procurements, the legal documentations, all the contracts. So effectively, this is available for other public bodies for sort of 3%, just over 3% of what it's cost Enfield Council. And hopefully it's the majority of what other local authorities, public bodies would need if they're looking to set up a heat network. It will need to be applied, but hopefully it will save the time and resource needed for these bodies to get to market. And importantly, it also includes a day of the energetics team's time to help answer any questions and apply the documents. You can imagine with such a huge range of documents, I'm sure you and your team would have a lot of questions, and then we can help apply that. So if that's of interest, I've got my contact details here on the screen. And I'm now just going to flick to a video that basically, if people ask me what I do as a job, and I say it's either sustainability or heat networks, people sort of look at you and they're not 100% certain all the time what it is that you do. So in the case of the heat network, what we've tried to do is a 2-minute overview. It's available on Energetic's website, and it's to really sort of recap on how Energetic is part of the Capital Sustainable Energy Solution. So I'll just flip to that now.
Is building a community energy network that will provide heating and hot water to at least 15,000 homes, along with businesses and public buildings across the borough. Our community energy networks heat radiators and water in the same way as a conventional boiler system. But rather than each property having its own individual boiler, there is a large central heat source that everyone shares, called an energy centre. The energy centres generate energy in the form of hot water, which is pumped through super insulated underground pipes into homes and businesses across Enfield. Once used, the cooler water that leaves each property goes back into the energy centre to be reheated and used again. The system is very safe and efficient. Each property has complete control over how much energy they use and how warm they want to be. The energy centre that powers the community energy network at Meridian Water is able to take heat from Edmonton Eco Park, which would otherwise be wasted. The system is adaptable too and can take heat from different sources. Our other heat networks will use gas-fired combined heat and power, which is significantly more efficient than conventional domestic gas boilers, so better for you and the environment. There are lots of benefits for Enfield residents and businesses from our community energy network. It will improve the well-being of residents and workers connected to our network, and at the same time have a positive impact on the wider environment. It's an efficient way of generating heat using high-quality, reliable equipment, and there's less reliance on imported fuels, providing customers with a secure supply of energy. There are less harmful emissions being pumped into the atmosphere, which helps to improve air quality and tackle climate change. Homes and businesses that connect will reduce their carbon footprint for heating by up to 80%. We want our community energy network to revolutionise the local energy market, with Energetic the supplier to trust. It's part of the Council's plan to make Enfield a better place to live, work and visit.
Okay, we've got some questions coming in now, and I hope some of you will put some of your other questions. We've got one for Sarah, but let me ask you one first of all. Let's get it clear what a community energy network is. Is the principle behind such a network that it is really ineffective to produce energy individually in your own homes? And that if you can find a way of doing it on a community basis and share the generation of that, not on a national grid, not in your individual homes, but in a community, then you save money, you save on the carbon footprint, and you make people feel that they're in control of the energy that they're receiving.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, they're perfectly suited to densely populated urban areas. It's not something that's new. They've been doing it in Scandinavia for years. And the beauty is that, yeah, you can adapt the technology. So as technologies develop, you can put new technologies onto the network. But yeah, effectively, it's a very efficient way of heating and providing hot water for people's homes and businesses.
Okay, one of the other questions I was going to ask, and Sarah sort of asked it in a different way as well, is that, I mean, £58 million were invested in it, and you know, Enfield, you talked about the 4 million they put in on all the documentation and everything. On both of those, how do you calculate a return on that investment? I mean, what's the future planning on that?
Yeah, so it's a 40-year business plan. It is a sizable investment, as you say. So it's not a decision that the council's taken lightly, but it's I suppose a sign of the benefits that the politicians and the council see as to why it's worth doing. It's over 40 years. Commercially, it washes its face. I mean, effectively, we're not going to be making the profits that a private sector energy company would make. That's because we're aiming to provide a fair price for our consumer. So what we're doing is taking the balance that the council makes an acceptable commercial return, and that return improves as we continue to expand. But the overriding factor is to ensure that we've got that fair price.
Okay, David Newman raises something about future-proofing what you're doing. We're seeing, you know, the price of solar energy and wind power, and particularly solar energy, going down, and batteries becoming more efficient and the price going down. I mean, are you operating in a technology that very soon will become old technology, or is it future-proof so that you can combine the newer renewables into this community energy network?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, that it's sort of technology agnostic. You can put in whichever technology suits. So at the moment, we've got gas-fired combined heat and power. You'd operate them for their meaningful life, and then if there's a new technology that's suitable, you can add that in. Or, I mean, we'll have a huge amount of heat from the Edmonton Eco Park that we can utilise. But if we're so successful and we keep on expanding and we actually utilise all of that heat, then we can add in more heat sources. And as you add in more heat demand and more heat sources, it becomes more efficient. So at the moment, say with residential heat demand, it's very peaky. So in the morning, evening, sort of people getting up in the morning, having their showers, coming home from work, that's when the bulk of the heat demand is required. If you add in some other heat sources, heat loads, and then heat demand, then you can actually make the network a lot more efficient. So yeah, businesses, schools, etc., and that will then improve the overall efficiency of the network.
Okay, so tell us a bit how all this began, Jeff. I mean, where did the idea generate? How did it start? Did it begin with a councillor? Did it begin with an officer? Did someone go to a conference and get a bright idea? What was the germination of this idea that led you to the position you're at now?
Okay, well, I started at the council 6 years ago. And at that point, we'd done some very early sort of pre-feasibility studies, and it was showing the scale of the opportunity. I think there was a clear vision from our chief executive at the time, who really wanted to make this happen. You could see the benefits for Enfield's and its energy future, and politically there was a huge amount of support behind it. But the whole thing was then iterative. We had to get hold of the money to prove to the next stage that it was worth doing, and that's basically what we've done over the last 6 years. We've done the next level of work, culminating in the business plan, which had extensive due diligence, showing that it was a robust business plan and that it really will deliver what we think it will deliver.
So you started that way, but I mean, where did the idea come from? Did it come from you, or I mean, it's quite interesting for local authorities how now new ideas emerge. Is it because certain people come in and they have ideas and they promote it and they can then help to affect change?
There'd been some heat mapping done at a regional level, at a pan-London level, that was attempting to show the opportunity, and I guess maybe we were one of the sort of early movers on that opportunity and seeing what we could do for Enfield and North London. So I mean, it's certainly our chief exec's sort of push to make it happen was critical, and I think without that and the political support, we wouldn't have been able to make it a reality. And I think for other local authorities, I think that is a really vital step, is having that push from the top. And we've got a lot of ambition in Enfield, and this is sort of one example of it.
So it's important to have that political support in the local authority, and you've got to have the expertise and the political will.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarah raises just a question about, I mean, what happens before you get this up and running? Will people still be buying from their normal supplier? And what options will they have later on? Will they have to go to your system, or can they still go to a national supplier?
Yeah, so different, I mean, heat networks are being set up in different parts of London, and we're all approaching it in different ways. I guess the big opportunity in Enfield is it's focused on new build and regeneration. So when people move in, they will then be supplied with their heating hot water by isEnergetic. They won't have been supplied by anyone else at that property. We'll be the first supplier. And effectively, yeah, we are a monopoly. But that's why we're putting all the effort into winning their hearts and minds, providing that excellent customer service, and hopefully then people will see the benefits.
Yeah, so in a way, isEnergetic is like a local version of the old-fashioned nationalized industry, is it? With a monopoly sort of at a distance from the local authorities, so it operates as a business, but nevertheless it's owned by the local state.
Yes, and I think that's the check and balance that's in there, is that the local authority, the reason for setting it up is for the benefit of the local residents and businesses and the local economy. So yes, it's municipalisation of energy. It's happening across the country. There's a few good examples of it, all different local authorities doing it in different ways. And I guess the thing for us is that the two things is that we're focused on new build, but we're also at scale.
So does that mean that if other local authorities, and you're doing it as well, municipalities could be in competition with each other?
Not on heat networks, no, I don't think so. Because the infrastructure is so it's expensive infrastructure, and you need to connect it to the heat sources. There's a big opportunity to link together different networks, but I don't think we're really in competition with each other. I think there is an opportunity for us to work closely together, and as we expand and other local authorities expand their networks, then hopefully we'll eventually link together. That is the real sort of the prize that we're all after.
David asks, how different is this that you're providing from the traditional combined heat and power used for electricity, for example, in Eastern Europe? I mean, I don't know if you know the answer to that. Yep. That's his question.
Oh, right. Okay. So we've gone with the Scandinavian design standards. So it'll be a very highly insulated network. I think some of the technologies that's referred to, maybe the customers there wouldn't get the best experience. We're really taking sort of best in class of what's works well and been proved to work well in Scandinavia and bringing it over here.
And Sarah asks a really sort of tricky question, and that is, I mean, is Enfield going to be both the business model, the investor, as well as the scrutiny of it as well, the governance part of it? And will these come into conflict? I mean, will you want to sort of defend what you're doing and not be able to scrutinize it in a way that you could have done if it wasn't you doing it?
Well, sort of flipping it on its head, I think the council is 100% shareholder, so it's got a huge interest in making sure that isEnergetic does things right. So what we've spent a huge amount of time on is actually putting in the checks and balances so that the council as shareholder can make sure that its investment is looked after and the residents and businesses do get what's being promised. So we've spent a lot of time putting in appropriate governance arrangements. So we need to give, I mean, the company is a limited company. It needs to be given the freedom to go out there, use the expertise that it's employed to make this a reality. But at the same time, it's got the appropriate checks and balances to make sure that the public money is being spent in the right way. So I think I'm very confident that having had the due diligence by various companies, KPMG, PwC, that actually we've really got that governance right.
Sarah follows it up by saying, if one of the local areas, take for example Oakwood, were to fail, then how does that affect your whole business plan? Have you got a risk assessment as you do it? And then, what are the problems of accountability there when that happens, and conflict of interest?
Well, I think the risk is that if isEnergetic doesn't do it, then you could well end up with a private sector energy service company doing it instead. And the track record in the UK is a mixed bag. So I guess by isEnergetic doing it, hopefully we're ensuring that people get that good customer service, they get the reliability of supply, and then there's the environmental benefits as well.
Okay, well, tell us a bit about isEnergetic itself. I mean, it's owned by the local authority, but I mean, what is it? How did you set it up? How did you get the necessary skills, and what was the legal framework of the company itself?
Okay, so it's a conventional limited company. It's 2 tiers. So we've got what we call the holding company at the top, which represents the interests of the council as shareholder. So we've got the chief executive of the council, the leader of the council, portfolio holders, cabinet members on there, and they really sort of they give the company its direction. But importantly, I mean, Enfield hasn't built a heat network before, and recognising that, we've got non-executive directors on the overarching board to bring that industry expertise and effectively to challenge the company. So you've got the holdco, or the holding company, providing the strategic direction, and then underneath that you've got the operating company. We've employed specialists, sort of experts with huge operational experience in this area, and we effectively we're in charge of the day-to-day operations of the company. So that's how it's split. So we've got over 100 years experience in district heating and community energy networks in that operating company. So we know how to do it well, and we know what doesn't work.
When you say when you say you know how to do it well, I mean, how did you know how to do it well? I mean, how did you find those experts? Where did the skill come from that? I mean, if you're trying to do something you don't necessarily know about that, did you have to get headhunters? Did you have to get consultancy? What did you do?
So it's it's coming back to that tightrope, and it's a very small number of people in the UK, I would say, that actually do know how to do this well. Maybe one of the advantages we've had of going early is that we've been able to find those people before other people have. So we've, as the process went along over the 6 years, we needed different skill sets. I brought in our technical director, who's worked on the Olympic Park, on their heat network. We brought in Jane Clare as our managing director, who's got huge experience in customers and consumers and metering and billing. And yeah, that's how we've effectively established our team. So bringing people in on not bringing in big consultancies, but bringing in the specific people with the operational experience and employing them in-house. That's how we've.
So those operational people would know what contractors to go to, and they would know all of that, and you depend on their knowledge for that.
Yes, and also what works well in terms of which contractor would be best to do a particular element of the work. So, for example, we've got a design, build, operate contract, and we've got a customer services contract, and we've deliberately separated them. And our job as a company is to manage the interface between the two, but we're confident that actually give us the best chance of really excellent customer service.
Okay, so when you set up a community energy network of this kind, you have to work with a sort of cohort of housing, really, don't you? So you need partners, is that right? You need partners like housing associations, social landlords. Are there any, I mean, can you tell us about that? And are there any other types of partners that could come into this?
Yeah, so there's a huge range. So there's we've been working closely with regional government, national governments, and I say there's this sort of rare alignment that actually all the way from national to regional to local governments that this is considered the right thing to do and key to the decarbonisation. We've got funding partners. So we've had some funding from the European Investment Bank, the London Energy Efficiency Fund. We're also Public Works Loan Board. We've got, on a site-specific basis, we've got partners, whether it's the developer, whether it's the housing association, as you say, the LLP. There's a huge number of partners, and I think what we've really tried to do is to bring those partners with us on the journey. So we spent a lot of time not just winning the hearts and minds of the people that are going to be moving in, it's actually those partners that we've been working with and really sort of helping them to become advocates of what we're trying to do. And that's really sort of paying dividends now.
Well, you're talking about 15,000 people and maybe expanding up to 30,000. I mean, in order to do this, do you have to have the cohort of housing with the right infrastructure? I mean, for example, if I were to knock on all the doors in my street, I live in the London Borough of Enfield, and several streets around, and said, look, we'd love a community energy network, and everyone in our streets, which includes maybe 500 houses, 1,000 houses, would like to set one up. I mean, is that possible to do?
It's a nice problem to have, and I did present a few months ago to the current administration at Enfield Council, and someone came up to me afterwards and went, "So when can I join?" and that's a great opportunity for us. I guess the reality is that this network is very expensive. The pipe work is very expensive, and it only really works where it's very densely populated. And probably we've got, we're starting with new build. We're keen to supply existing properties, but we've got to make that funding model and the business model work. So we're taking it all on a case by case basis. And that's really my work at the moment, is looking at the expansion opportunities and seeing, really sort of teeing up the next connections and seeing what we can do. I mean, we would never be able to supply an individual house at a time. You've really got to have a one route in. So if it's a block of flats, that might be possible. But one of our key opportunities is new developments as they happen. So we've closely linked in with the planning system, and in fact, any new development that happens in Enfield is required to connect to a heat network where possible, and needs to meet the sort of the quality standards that you'd expect of a good heat network. So that's one of our main drivers, is actually new developments coming through planning as one of our expansion opportunities.
So it's really only a partial solution to the energy situation in Enfield. It's not a total solution. But do you see a time when that might be expanded to houses that already exist that are not new build? Is there a technology coming up? Have you talked that over with your board where, that may be possible?
It's certainly something that we're actively looking at. I guess the challenge is, once you're across the front door, is if you've got to replace the whole heating system to make it a wet system, how you pay for that. I mean, and I think the emission factors are just changing for electric systems. So the carbon savings perhaps aren't as big as they once were. So it's a challenge for how we actually make that a reality. But yes, we're very keen to do that if we can.
Obviously, one particular group that would be very interested, or that should be in theory, are housing associations. I mean, how have housing associations you've spoken to responded to what you're doing?
Very positive. So we had this event at the Crystal. We had some housing associations that were there, and I had some really good, sort of meaningful discussions with them that again are looking at whether this sort of a public sector energy company is the way forward for the future. So I mean, we work with a number of housing associations on our estate renewals, and hopefully we're sort of bringing them along with us, and they can see the big benefits. So yeah, it's not new as a technology, or heat networks aren't new, but for the UK, doing it this way is perhaps new, and that's really where we're sort of hopefully starting to get the word out there.
So when you set up a community energy network, are they autonomous, or can you set up a grid between those different networks that have been established, for example, to capture surplus energy?
Yeah, so the best, I mean, at the moment, the reason we've gone with gas-fired combined heat and power for our 3 estate renewals is that they're too far to connect from our main network at the eco park. So there'd be enough heat, but we can't, it can't justify taking the pipes that far at this stage. But over many years, there's big opportunities to link them all together. So the Ponders End heat network, there's a big industrial corridor just south of that, all the way down to Meridian Water. Huge opportunity to over time to link it all together. Yeah.
But that's something like stage 2 or stage 3 of your development. You've got to get them up and running first.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're sort of doing the business development work in parallel. So, I mean, all of these developments will take a long time to be fully built out, but in parallel, we're looking at the expansion opportunities. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, so for the customer, the proof for the puddings in the eating, they get cheaper electricity, they get more efficient electricity. But for the
Well,
planet,
not cheaper. So what we said, it's a fair price. So it's low carbon heating and the hot water at a price that is the same as gas. Is comparable to gas for resident.
so there's no gain in terms of price at all. It'd be about the same price as energy that we have now.
The price of gas has dropped right down, so there's no way that we would be able to be cheaper than gas. But what we said is that we'll be comparable, and effectively you're getting a low carbon heat source for the same price as a fossil fuel.
Okay, so how do you measure your carbon reduction, the reduction in your carbon footprint? If people wanted to say, look, give us the evidence that this really works, how would you do it?
I'll talk to our technical director. he's got all the numbers behind it, and I mean we're members of the Heat Trust, so it's all very transparent, and we've got all the information that is publicly available there on the website to show how this is all put together. But just coming back to sort of first principles, I mean the big advantage is that energy recovery facility. So it's taking all of North London's waste, and you're basically capturing what would be going straight up the chimney. So you're making use of energy that would otherwise be being wasted, and that's why it's so carbon or good for the environment, and helps decarbonise London's carbon footprint.
Sarah mentions, by the way, do you have to compete for purchasing the waste?
So we've got a commercial agreement with the Waste Authority, so we've put that in place. So that's actually there. So we've got the secure supply of heat.
Okay, and Sarah mentions that you exploit waste heat and so on. And what happens if there are new technologies that can exploit it more efficiently? Have you looked at future competition?
Well, I mean, we're perfectly poised to take advantage of them. So, I mean, we wouldn't swap out a technology midway through, because, I mean, say, for example, the gas CHP, big investment required. But when that comes to the end of its operational life, however long that might be, 15 years perhaps, at that point, we've got an opportunity to look at new technologies and see if we go with the new technologies.
Okay, and David asks, how does the price of heat from your network compare from heat from heat pumps, local heat pumps?
So, I mean, that's an interesting one, because I mean, heat pumps is a new technology, and ultimately, I mean, there's a lot of interest in heat pumps and whether they could become part of heat networks. So there's other local authorities, certainly those along the Thames, that are looking at that opportunity. So they could actually be part of the solution. So if you're an energetic customer, you will be benchmarked against gas. So if we then add in a heat pump, then that's part of our sort of overall business. But as a customer, you'll still get that price and that price guarantee.
Okay, so you're in the process of building consolidation, and then you're going to be in the process of expansion. And you said that your particular job is to look at market opportunities and that expansion. So will Energetic have the freedom to go out and do that, or do they have to always come back to the local authority and say, we're going to Westminster, it's a Tory authority, can we go there, and all of that sort of nonsense? Mm-hmm. Or do you have the commercial freedom to do what you want?
So we went with a prudent business case. So 15,000 is huge, but it was prudent. We knew there was a lot more opportunity to connect, but the thinking was that we could only really go with what was in our gift, what we really had control of. We know that there's a huge amount more out there, and it's in the interest of the business and therefore the shareholder to keep on expanding. And we made that explicit within the business plan. So we secured the investment on the prudent business case, and then we're looking to expand beyond there to improve the financial viability of the business. So there's a real drive for us to do that. Obviously, there's a funding. So if we do expand, we need to do a variation on the business plan each time to show that it truly is worth doing. And I guess there's always this sort of bit of a chicken and egg. So we've got to, as a business, take the decision when it's right to expand the pipe and exactly where we put the pipe, knowing what future opportunities may or may not happen. So there's always there's a careful bit of timing needed as to when you invest, to thinking that the next bit of the jigsaw is going to come into place. And that's going to be a key decision for the business over the next going forward, really. Constant decision making as to when it's best to expand and how far we push the pipe, knowing that there's always going to be more opportunities, but it's basically cash flow for the business is one of the key things that we obviously need to, as company directors, need to keep a very close eye on.
And I mean, do you sort of work, or does the local authority work with putting pressure on government to say that when there is new build, they should always have in their design of new build the capability to have a local community energy network?
So we've it's not very imaginatively titled, but we've got what's called the Decentralized Energy Network Supplementary Planning Document, and that within Enfield, that is basically the document that requires developments to meet this technical specification. As we extend out into other boroughs, then hopefully we can work with them and sort of require a similar sort of standard in other boroughs. But I think that's the bit that we need is when developments happen, they need to be really shown what's required. They're not going to do it on their own.
And as you expand, is it only public companies that can invest, or as Sarah asked, can private investors invest into any expansion plans as well?
Interesting. I mean, it's 100% owned by the council at the moment. And in the first few years, it's going to be making a loss because that's the nature of a big investment infrastructure project. Over time, once it's a viable business and it's been de-risked, then I'm sure private businesses would wish to invest, and ultimately that comes back to the council as shareholder to decide what it wishes to do. I mean, the whole ethos of setting it up is to for the area's long-term energy future. So that would be a decision at the time.
Okay, and you know, as you develop this, how have you ensured it fits in with the whole sustainability program of the London Borough of Enfield? Okay. Is this something that came as an idea, as a one-off, or was it looked as a part of an overall plan of sustainability?
Yeah, so with my head of sustainability hat on, I mean, with several of us in the company have got different hats, a whole wardrobe of hats. But yes, on the council side, there's a bigger picture on what we're doing to reduce the council's and the borough's carbon footprint. So we've setting up an energy company, a local energy company, was a really important part of that. But it's not the only thing we're doing. We've got our own fuel. The council's got its own fuel poverty service. There's a huge amount of fuel poverty. There's also a significant amount of investment going into the council's buildings, social housing, private sector housing on the energy retrofit, the whole thing about invest to save. So it's all about saving energy, saving money, but also saving energy and saving carbon on the back of it. So the energy company is one part of it. We've got the investments that are happening. We've done ground source heat pumps. So we've got large scale ground source heat pumps in the borough now, and we're rolling that out. And then we've got the fuel poverty service as well. So this is just perhaps one part of the energy jigsaw that we've got.
And what is the structure, if you like, of the mechanism of the political overview? Is it a cabinet, or is it just the board? What is the relationship between them, the local authority and the company? The company, the holding company, takes care of the sort of looking after OpCo and making sure that giving OpCo the strategic direction that it needs. And as I say, people in that company are senior within the council, but when they're in the holding company, they represent the company, not the council. And that's a really important point. They're there as company directors. And then we have effectively, now that we're going live, we have a clienting role on the local authority side that client isEnergetic as a company. And that's really the mechanism for making sure that the shareholder gets what it needs. So do you think in developing this, you're part of a growing movement of having localized energy and sustainable energy? And what you're doing is really one very, very good example of many things that are happening across the country and indeed across the world.
Yes, I think locally is where the action needs to happen to make it a reality. I mean, the policy is important, but ultimately it comes down to making things happen. And I think local authorities are in a good position to actually do that. And yeah, we've got many different things that we're doing in Enfield, and setting up the energy company is one of those.
Yeah, I mean, at a time when people are saying local authorities are constrained in all sorts of ways, you provided an example, haven't you, of where they can be imaginative, and they can do things differently. I mean, have you had a lot of local authority interest in this to say, you know, how do we work with you, or how do we do it ourselves? How do we engage in a new innovative way of delivering services?
So back in, it was 2015 when we actually set up the energy company. We were incorporated at Companies House. We had our first board meetings. At that time, we could have gone several different routes, and setting up our own energy company, public sector ESCO, was just one option. That's the route that we decided was best. And different authorities at that time were going different ways. I think now, having spoken to a large number of them, there seems to be a real groundswell that, yeah, the public sector ESCO seems to be the way to go. So I've certainly spoken to a large number of people in other authorities that are thinking of doing something similar. There's a large amount of government funding that's available for heat networks, and perhaps they're maybe 2-3 years behind where we are, looking to hopefully follow through and do something very similar, which would be great. There seems to be a real sort of momentum now that this is the way to do things.
Also, I think for local authorities, what they will find interesting is it's a very good relationship between officers and members, where officers have a lot of freedom to develop things with the support of members.
Yeah, it's a real team effort. You need the members, you need the chief executive, and you need the officers. You need champions at all levels, really, in the organisation to make it a reality.
Sarah asks quite an interesting question, in that she says, what happens if your development moves to another area, Waltham Forest,
Yep.
Haringey or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still supplied by Enfield's scheme with, Enfield chief executive and councillors on the board.
Yep.
Won't you come into conflict with those local authorities who would want some control of it themselves?
Well, it's interesting because we've thought through this, and we've deliberately not badged it as Enfield Council. So Enfield Council at the moment is the shareholder, but people will get their energy bill as isEnergetic. So it's, in terms of the branding, it's future-proofed for other local authorities to participate. And there's various options. I mean, we could do a bulk heat supply agreement, or you could take it to another level, and other local authorities are involved as shareholder. So we're in active discussions with other local authorities and about our expansion plans.
I suppose what's behind Sarah's question is this really the municipalisation of energy, or is this one local authority trying to take over other local authorities' energy supplies?
Oh, that'd be no. It's not a takeover, that's for sure. It's, to me, there's only 4 energy recovery facilities, as far as I know, in London. That people often look at them and go, oh yeah, wouldn't want one of those near me. But if you're building a heat network, it's exactly what you need, and we've only got 4, so they're by far the biggest opportunity for a heat network. So you've got to start somewhere. The hardest thing is starting and getting this thing going. If we've actually got the heat networks happening, we've managed to secure that source of waste heat, then it's for another local authority. The key opportunity is very low carbon heat, and if you can get the finances right, which hopefully you can do because because you're getting it from the waste authority there, of which they're also members, it should be a no-brainer, really.
Okay, well, we've sort of come to the end of this, but just one final question. I mean, how exciting is all this for you? What sort of personal satisfaction do you get in being involved in what is a new project, which not many people will have thought about before?
There's really sort of two projects. One of them has been setting up the company and setting up a startup company. The other has been with the business plan. So when I started, I'd got experience on sustainability, but I really didn't know about a heat network. So it's been a huge learning curve for myself, and I've really enjoyed it. I feel as though we're actually doing something big, something that's going to make a difference. And for me, the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is the carbon savings, but we're not leading with that message. And I think that maybe that's part of the success. It's the consumer for heat networks. It's the consumer experience.
Okay, well, thanks for doing that, Jeff. I mean, that was quite an extended hour of, presentation and discussion, and with some good questions coming in from people who are on the webinar. And so it is an exciting development of how a municipality, a London borough in this case, can really make a difference and can be innovative, and they don't have to be always down in the doldrums saying, resources are not there, we can't do things. This is an example of something that can be done. So thanks for this presentation, and thank you all of you who joined.